Walking a sandy beach in early spring, when it's still cold, is one of life's greatest pleasures. Hi there, I'm Alex Boone. I'm a nature artist who makes nature journals and teaches this beautiful hobby at naturejournalingcircle.com. Today I'm going to be painting robins and using gold leaf in my journal. I'll show you my mistakes and successes, plus we'll go for a river walk together. This year I'm working on a project to paint the 72 microseasons of my home in Devon in the UK. I hope you'll follow along and watch me fill the journal this year. In the last video I made this practice page and I used this scrim watercolour to get the gold leaf effect that I'm going to be using in the background. I just wanted to see whether it would work. First I painted the watercolour on, it gives this wonderful metallic sheen, and then I filled in the robin in Derwent Inktense. Today I'm going to do the same. I've first sketched out these two robins from two separate reference photographs, one of which I took myself, the other was from Pixabay. I actually found it quite tricky to get the angle of this beak right, and I didn't get it quite right in the practice drawing, so I spent a bit of time on this one just kind of working it out and making sure that I got it right. I found this second robin a little bit easier to sketch. Once I have the outlines of the two robins done, I get to painting them. A little bit more on the painting process will be shown a little later in the video for the second robin. Here I've kind of already filled out most of the details on this first one. For this one I mainly used the Derwent Inktense Studio Pan set, whereas for the other I used mainly the Derwent Inktense pencils. You'll see later on the results really aren't all that different between the two ways of using the Derwent Inktense. I've got to the point now where I'm quite familiar with the colours. There's certain colours that you can only really get in the pencils, and one of them is called burnt orange, which I find extremely useful for painting robins. There's actually a robin tutorial in my course at the Nature Journaling Circle called Painting Nature in Derwent Inktense, so if you want to see this in a whole lot more detail, you can go and get the course there. One of my favourite bits is to paint in the little black eyes. So you see first I've used a watered down kind of Payne's grey colour to put in a base layer, and then I go over the top with this ink black, leaving some of that Payne's grey showing through around the little white glint that I've left the colour of the paper. That's the secret to an eye that's full of life. Now that I've got this painted, I'm going to get started with a little bit of the gold leaf, but first I need to let it dry. Do you want to go out again? Do you know what you want? Okay, let's take a look at some of this gold leaf process. I'm using gold leaf rather than the metallic watercolour again, because really there's no substitute for really good gold leaf. As much as I love that watercolour, this is the way that I wanted to do it in my real journal project for this year. So first up I just put on some EVA glue, and I've coated it and let it go a little bit tacky. Now, I don't recommend that you do your gold leafing like this. Unfortunately, what I had left was some loose leaf from an old journaling and painting project, and I didn't have any transfer leaf to hand. Really, you want to be using the transfer leaf for this sort of thing. But I thought I'd just kind of use up what I had. I don't really like wastage. I don't think I'd be using that for anything else. And I kind of wanted to show you how much of a pain it can be if you accidentally use the loose leaf instead of the transfer leaf. Look at how much more work I'm having to do and how poor the coverage is. And it's so tricky as well trying to handle this. Ideally you kind of want to wear gloves if you can. I find it uncomfortable and difficult to wear them, so I just find them too tight and just the texture of them is horrible. So I kind of do the not so recommended version of trying to put it on by hand, just sort of tapping it on like this. You can use a soft brush on there, which I do a lot later on, but I actually found that sometimes the brush was rubbing away some of the leaf. You can see how much of a mess I'm making of this and how difficult it actually was. It's kind of a matter of layering and layering and layering. And I have this old book I needed to kind of use up, so it doesn't matter that I'm going to be using up the last few sheets in the book all on this page, even though I kind of have to keep going over bit by bit. All of the little offcuts, you see that as the areas that didn't receive any glue, as I gradually remove those, I'm putting those back into the book and I can use them later on to fill in any gaps that were left behind. Now I'm using this very, very, very soft brush. It's really important that the brush that you're using is as soft as you can get it for this part of the work, because it's very easy to kind of start to scrape away some of that gold leaf, even if you've left it plenty of time to dry. So although it didn't show it in the video here, there was a good 25 to 30 minutes left in between applying the gold leaf and coming back with the brush. And this was in a warm environment where I know that it's going to dry relatively quickly. So it's a very slow process of removing the excess gold leaf with the soft brush and trying kind of to only remove the areas where you can see that it's starting to kind of flick up a little bit. Do all of that first, take off all of the bits that are clearly loose, very, very gently. If you've left the glue to become a little bit tacky before you start to put that gold leaf on, then it should adhere really, really well. Once you've done all of that, you can just brush off everywhere very, very gently to make sure that there's no excess. Now you can see that the result is a little bit gappy. There's a few areas here where they just didn't get the coverage that I wanted. So what I'm going to have to do now is go back and fill in some of those gaps. Take a look at the page using the metallic watercolour. Although the coverage is better, look at the difference in the shine. That's really why I wanted to use this 24 karat gold leaf rather than the metallic watercolour on this page. I'm just going to go back now and fill in some of these gaps, and then I'll be waiting for my next book of gold leaf to arrive in the post before I show you how to use that. While we wait, let's go for a nice walk along the river and do a little bit of nature journaling outside. It was early morning when I came out to sit on this fallen tree. I did a little bit of nature journaling and had my breakfast outdoors. The birdsong was so loud and prolific that I quickly put on my Merlin app so that I could work out all of the different things that were around and were singing at that moment. Some of them I could recognise myself. So I ticked off all of the ones that I knew that I had heard, that I could definitely identify myself, or that I had perhaps seen flying around in the vicinity. I had my big camera with me so I could look closely at what birds were around too. I had a little laze about on the tree, and then decided to walk round the corner to the old mill, where the wild garlic was already coming up in profusion. I love these old walls here. It's a ruined mill from centuries ago, and it's all still standing, with great trees growing out the top of it, and wool pennywort growing out of the old stones. I left my microphone at home, so I'll leave most of this for the voiceover, but just to say that I've come out today to the old mill, and this actually featured in one of my old videos before, so if you want to go back into the archives for 2022, you can go and find when I was last here. I've been sat out on the log and doing some nature journaling with Merlin and generally just trying to relax this morning. I hate barbed wire for many reasons, but you can really see why on this ancient tree, where the tree has actually gradually grown around the wire and the wire is now part of the tree itself. A little walk further and I'm on the River Parrett trail. This is the River Parrett, a very sandy based river. It almost felt like I was on the beach here. I thought I'd wait here and nature journal a little while on the banks of the river. I saw a few things here like pond skaters and heard plenty of interesting birds too. Mostly I just listened to the sound of the water and looked at the hemlock coming up on the opposite banks. I've found myself increasingly drawn to the riverbank since I did a project last year working on a book all about how to draw rivers, which is publishing this year, by the way, if you want to check that one out. I also got to see this dunnock doing its flapping display, one of those wonderful little signs of spring, seeing the birds in their courtship and territory defence behaviours. I've had some mail. My new gold leaf packet is here, and now I can work on this second robin and show you how it really should be done. But first let's get some painting done. This time I'm going to be using the Derwent Inktense pencils, which I'm scribbling out right here on the palette. I keep a little sketchbook to use as a paper palette, so I'm picking up the paint from that little paper palette and putting it down onto my painting right here and now. I've already put down this first layer. I'm filling in the gaps in between. You can kind of see that the first layer dries and then it allows me to lay over the top a lighter layer. One of my favourite things about Derwent Inktense. You don't have to worry about those layers blending together once you add the next layer over the top. And then I'm going to add some Payne's Grey. This is my favourite way to show the kind of whitish blue fringe. I've spent so much time painting robins. They're my probably most painted bird. I've been drawing them and painting them for many years. So I've become very familiar with the colours in the sets, both of my coloured pencils and my paint, to represent the different colours and patches of this bird's particular plumage. The nice thing about using this brush is that I've put a little bit of the burnt umber inside the brush as well as the Payne's Grey. So you can see that there's little areas where a little bit of brown is coming in from higher up the brush. It's quite a fun thing to do. You need quite a bit of water to make this one work. Now I'm just putting in the back. This time I'm using two colours within the Derwent Inktense set. One of them is oak and the other one is tan. And I'm blending these colours within the brush and putting them down along the robin's body. Adding a little bit of orange in here just to reflect back some of the colours from the robin's breast. It's quite useful to add a little hint of some of the colours that are present in one part of an animal or bird, just to kind of bring some harmoniousness to the entire painting. Now I'm just doing the legs. I'm using a kind of a reddish colour here that I've mixed up from the colours that you can see on the palette. I'm filling in this quite quickly, just getting the general shape. I've already sketched in the legs, so it's quite easy to see where everything needs to go. Just as you saw before, I'm now going to fill in that eye, starting out first with that washed out Payne's Grey colour to get some of the main areas of the eye in. And I'm also using a very similar Payne's Grey mix for the beak here too. I'm going to let that dry before I now fill in the black. And I'm just going to kind of go around that Payne's Grey area, leaving a little bit in the white of that eye, so you can kind of see a little bit of a glimmer. Now I'm putting in the dark areas of the wings, using burnt umber here and a very, very fine brush to fill in the little gaps underneath the feathers and some of the details on the face. I like to finish off with a darker layer that goes over the top. Watch me finish off the rest of this painting, and then I'll show you how to do the gold leaf. Okay, this time I'm going to do it properly. I've got transfer leaf in 23 carat standard gold, and I'm just going to show you how this process works. First off, I'm going to put in my EVA glue. I'm painting this on over most of the area. I kind of want it to dry a little bit, so it sort of goes kind of a little bit tacky, but not completely dry. That's the perfect time to be laying on that gold leaf. So I'm painting over a good area, leaving it a couple of minutes, and then getting my leaf ready. You can see this time it's already laid out on a piece of paper. What I do is I press that into place, and then I'm going to use a soft brush on the back of it, cover the whole area, and carefully peel away that backing sheet. You can see that in this square it's laid on perfectly. What a relief, and what a difference to what you saw earlier. I'm just refreshing the glue a little bit here on this side. I'll give it a couple of minutes, and then my next sheet of gold, so easy to remove, ready on that paper, slap it down, brush on the back. What a difference. Carefully peeling it away, second sheet done. Again, I'm refreshing the glue. I'm being very careful around the outline of the painting, because if you get any glue on the painting, the gold leaf is going to adhere. Little mistake there. When you press it down, you've got to be very careful not to move it. I gave it a very slight slide as I adhered that gold leaf down, and you saw what happened. Some of the leaf lifted, shifted, and that's a gap that I'm now going to have to fill in later. Being much more careful with this one, making sure that I lay it down in one quick motion. You see some of the leaf this time came away on the paper. That's because of the painting underneath. There's no glue there. So in that case, some of the leaf is going to adhere and remain on the paper, which is perfect for smaller areas like here at the bottom. Now I'm going to touch up some of the areas that were missed, using some of these bits of gold leaf that were left on the paper from smaller areas. Carefully paint the glue over the top, fill in the gaps, and because it's the same stuff, it really doesn't matter if you need to do this, it will just blend seamlessly in. I'm going along the spine now because I left a few little bits. Now let's reveal the painting underneath the gold leaf. This is my favourite bit. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoyed watching my vlog today. Have you tried using gold leaf before? Let me know in the comments, and ask me any questions you have too. I'm a relative novice, but I've practiced quite a bit now, and I hope I can help you. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to see more of my content. I'll leave you with the sea fog rolling in the undercliffs, as me and my sister had a picnic on the cliffside. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.